It's a great fight. Ode Osbourne taking on Charles Energy Johnson. Two flyweights that are explosive. Two flyweights to go out there and really throw down like to strike. And finally, they're giving Charles Johnson a striker. It's going to be a fun one to watch. And both these guys are really entertaining, man. I mean, when you look at Ode Osbourne, I think he's the much faster guy. He's extremely fast, man. Extremely explosive. And I think Ode Osbourne has a lot of potential. It's just, in his last fight, he got caught. He got knocked out. And his chin is questionable, man. I mean, you've seen him get knocked out twice in his last 5 fights. He has gotten rocked in some other fights that I've seen. And that's one of his major issues, along with just he has grappling deficiencies. In this fight, I don't really know if that's going to be a big factor. I think Johnson, even though he's the better grappler, is going to keep it standing. But Ode Osbourne's chin, to me, in this fight is the biggest issue for him, potentially. But on the feet, I think he has the major speed advantage and he has the reach advantage. He's someone that, if he can mitigate some of those mistakes that he does, like I feel like he needs to work a lot more just the hands because they're good enough, man. I mean, in his last fight, he was mixing a lot of those flying knees, trying to be dynamic, which is good, but could also get you caught. You can get a little bit too predictable, even if it's creative attacks, and that's what happened with Tyson Nam, and got caught, clipped when he was trying to go for the flying knee, was off his feet and got put to sleep. So against Charles Johnson, I think he needs to work what he's really good at, which is the 1-2s, 3-2s, feints and pressure. Stay in and out, control that distance. When Johnson tries to close the gap on him, counter him, and get out of range, don't stay in that pocket for too long. And Charles Johnson's going to want to make it more of a dogfight. He's going to want to get it where they're both sticking in the pocket, they're both standing right in front of each other, because that's where Charles Johnson really shines. That Muay Thai background comes out. He has a lot of really good counter-striking ability. He's a long, rangy fighter himself, and he can mix in some real dangerous attacks like elbows, knees, and you can get real slick, throw combinations, power shots. But Johnson, at times, also can be pretty inactive. Sometimes he can back guys up and kind of let guys unload on him to get them tired for the first half of the round, then try to come back in the second half of the round. And I feel like he makes some fights a lot closer than they need to be because he doesn't go for it, and he doesn't have, I don't know if he doesn't have the ability, but he just doesn't push that high pace for 15 minutes that I think he could do. With Ode Osbourne, I think it's imperative on Charles Johnson to be the guy that gets on that front foot and tries to push that pace, tries to get in the face of Ode Osbourne, back him up, tries to, make him more of a firefight. Because Osbourne, if he can pot shot and, use that speed and just back up Johnson and touch him and keep controlling that distance, he'll do that all night. So Johnson is going to be the one that I think has to mix it up and either use the clinch, a couple takedowns, surprise Osbourne with the grappling, or use his striking more offensively, more volume from Johnson, and just try to make it more of a dogfight. Because I think if it's a finesse fight, I think Osbourne's speed is just going to be too big of a difference. And I think Osbourne's going to come in here with a smarter game plan. I think he's going to come in here being a little bit more economical, a little bit safer due to just getting knocked out. So I feel like he's going to be on his P's and Q's, smarter, sharp for this fight. I don't think he's going to want to afford back-to-back losses. For Charles Johnson, he's coming off 2 wins in a row. He's fighting really, really quickly back-to-back-to-back, which can be good or bad. But personally, I feel like, that's one of the reasons why I'm leaning towards Osbourne as well. 32 years old, fighting 3 times in, 4 or 5 months. I think that's a really hard pace to keep. And I feel like Ode Osbourne is going to be able to probably take advantage of that. I think Charles is going to be a little bit inactive at times in the fight, where I think Ode Osbourne is going to be a little bit more flashy, pressuring, being a little bit faster and more volume-oriented. Charles Johnson, one thing about him is he's super durable, so Osbourne can't go out there and expect the knockout. He just has to fight within himself and use the basics, and I think he can get the victory here. Johnson, if he does want to mix in the grappling, that's where it could get interesting, and that's where he could have the advantage. If he can get the clinch, get a takedown, or somehow shoot in and get a takedown, which he doesn't really do too often. But if he can do that, get on top, I think he could have an advantage. So I think Johnson overall, if you talk about the diversity of striking and just being an overall more technical, advanced striker, it's probably Johnson. But I feel like Osbourne is more dynamic, more active, and has a big speed advantage. And I feel like his length also could give him an advantage too in this fight. So I'm leaning towards Ode Osbourne getting the win here by decision. And I think he's just going to be a little bit too fast, a little bit too slick for Johnson. Control that distance, not get hit with enough counters. I think Johnson's going to be just a little bit too inactive. I think the reach is going to be a factor, and I think Osbourne's going to win this one in a close fight on points here.